And May, we bring in somebody who I would imagine is quite a relieved man that the window is now closed, although doubtless it means his work is not over. Please, I'd say give a warm welcome, but nobody's here to applaud. Just George.
Just boo.
No, yes, we don't do that on this podcast. You know that. How are you?
I do. I'm okay. Frazzled, but okay. You?
Yeah, good. Yeah, pretty much the same. Yeah, a little bit frazzled. But yes, so shall we start at the top and jump straight in? There has been talk potentially of one more incoming. I know that we're not going to get an exclusive, but many of the viewers here won't have listened to the Radio Lincolnshire interview. So what's the current state of play?
Yeah, what sometimes happens, Gary, right at the end of these windows is players that we're aware of potential availability on at certain levels of finance. At the very, very end of a window, sometimes that changes a little bit and they become a big interest to us. So you have sort of lots of irons in the fire. And then at the very, very, very death, if you're not lucky, but if you've made your phone calls and people are aware of what you might be looking for, sometimes the phone rings in the opposite direction and says, look, do you want to do X or Y or Z because something's fallen through? So I'd like to tell you that we've beaten off 10 other clubs in the last 20 minutes, but what we've actually done is we've had good communication with a club and an agent and whatever. So, yeah, we think we've got one, but we can't talk about it because it's a loan. We need to speak to the parent club. Everything's got to be done properly, but we think we've got everything uploaded with a couple of minutes to spare. So that's a nice little bonus for us at the end.
Excellent, and something for everybody to look forward to. Would it be remiss of me to ask what area of the pitch, or do I just leave it for now?
Just leave it for now, but I'll be really open with everything else, and then be fair to the process for this one, because the other part of this is we have to get it agreed, and what's the word? Like, we've uploaded everything, but we haven't had confirmation, so we'll just wait and get the I's dotted and the T's crossed.
Okay, so we'll move on to the rest of today's transfers and then delve a little deeper into the window, if that's all right with you. And let's start with what I would imagine would be the most welcome signing of the transfer window from fans' points of view. You've got the left back, so Adam Reach coming to the club.
Yeah, can I just have a little nibble back at the? Just that. I think Riley Taylor has done really, really well at left back, and I know people will look at him and go, "What is he? 6'4", 6'5", and he's not a left back and stuff." Take this with a pinch of salt, what I'm going to say, but I've got to smile at Riley. I said, if Pep Guardiola signs Guardiola, who's the most expensive left-sided centre half in football, in world football, and brings him to Man City and plays him left back, so can Lincoln. And we spoke to Riley when we signed him, and we told him that, look, we're going to sign Sonny Bradley, and we see you long term as playing left side centre half for us, but you're going to learn so much with Sonny in the building. And he's leaving Portsmouth. Be aware that he's leaving Portsmouth because he wants first team football and he wants regular football. And we got ahead of another really, really big club in League One to sign him. So there was definitely part of this planning, Gary, that we knew we might have to go to the absolute death to get the left back. And we knew there's a dearth of real options out there, and I can talk to you a little bit about the process of who we pursued and how, without probably giving direct names at this stage. But it's definitely in our planning that Riley can play there. Does he play there slightly differently to Sean Rowan? Yeah, of course. Does he play there slightly differently to the I don't know if that's a thing anymore in football, but the archetypal perceived what a left back should look like. But when he scores the far post header against West Brom, when he can invert into midfield like he did against Burton and almost play like a left-footed central midfield player, we think he's got loads of potential to develop in the role. And sometimes for us, we have to make sure there's an opportunity for a player to develop in the team. He won't develop coming here and watching Sonny Bradley train every day. So this is definitely not the end of Riley Taylor playing left back for Lincoln. What we wanted to have is the other opportunity, the other option of a far more attacking threat, someone who's almost like the opposite, maybe like a left winger converted to be a left back. And that's why we think Adam's a really smart acquisition for us in this window, brilliant career, top fella, brings a wealth of experience, played alongside Sonny at the back end of last season, played in both legs of the playoff semi-final. And look, there'd be no secret in saying that we've pursued some options in this window that would have replaced Sean in terms of future asset for the football club, as well as the 4,140 minutes he played in the league. But equally, as well as the trying to secure a future asset for the club, we had the best other available list. And it's just been working through both of those. And we get to a point in the window where we know it's risky to leave the city later. Adam's still available. And, it's announced today, but it was tied up at the back end of last week. So, and for anyone eagle-eyed enough, he was in the director's box watching the game on Saturday. So, we're really pleased. He's a top guy, really, really talented player. Will bring a lot to the group and will enable between him and Riley and also Tendai, who can flip over and play in that position as well. Just starts to give us a few more options rather than me sitting very, very nervously when Riley's on 4 bookings.
We'll say 4 bookings, but given Saturday's official, it was. I won't draw you on that. So somebody sat, as I understand it, next to Adam Reach in the stands on Saturday was Finn Barbrook. Good loan spell at Sutton last season, and has obviously leapt League 2 into League 1. What do we see in Finn? What can fans expect?
Yeah, I think, look, first of all, we made the decision with Ethan Hamilton to allow him to leave the club. And we did that with a fairly clear idea of how we wanted to replace him. And we were fairly a long way down the line in terms of speaking with Ipswich and speaking with Finn. So it took a few days to get that over the line, but there was certain clarity with us that in letting Ethan go, we'd be able to bring a midfield player in. Look, we really like Finn. A really good pal of mine was previous manager of Chelmsford City, and he took Finn on loan from Ipswich, Robbie Simpson, and speaks so highly of him as a character as well. And as soon as you do a Zoom presentation, I speak too much, so quite often our Zoom presentations take about an hour. With Finn, it was like an hour and a half because he had so many good questions, really perceptive, really impressive young man, outstanding mentality. And then you see that he's taken the next step with Sutton United in the National League. We all know, don't we? We might not quite remember the muck and nettles of the National League, but it's a really, really tough competition. It's really attritional. It's really competitive. It's really physical. And it was a brilliant loan for him. Played 30-odd games, did really well. Steve Morrison speaks really, really highly of him. And then he's progressed really well in pre-season with Ipswich. You don't ever put these things on press releases, Gary, because everybody says, highly thought of by the parent club. But he is. He was on the bench against Birmingham at the start of the season. He played against Bromley. And it was only literally after that they trained on Friday that, Kieran was, saying that, he can go out on loan. So we just think we've got a really good young player, one who's going to develop with us. He'll grow with us. He'll get games. He'll get minutes. He'll be really competitive in that midfield, put people under pressure to keep their positions. He's got a brilliant role model in Connor. I think Connor McGrandles is, I say this with a smile, but I always describe him as like the most underrated player in world football. I think it's close. I think we love him, but we know he's underrated. But the stuff he does and the little detail, the nuance of the way he goes about his job will help Finn develop as well. And he's coming to play. He's coming to, he'll back himself to get into our team. So, just add some competition in a position where Tom Bayliss, Eain as well, who's now off playing for Ukraine under-21s. They have a competitive game on Friday against Lithuania. And also, let's not forget a very, very talented young player who can play in a number of positions for us, central midfield being one of them in Dom Jeffries, who's coming back from 2 major surgeries with his hips, but he's on the grass today for the first time doing some running. And Dom was fantastic last year, and wait till you see him, I think, this year when he's not got, two sort of issues that he had to deal with literally between games, and probably became less and less able to shake that off from game to game as the season progressed. So, we think it's a really good department now, the team.
I'm quite excited to see Dom come back, and sometimes when players come back from injury, having been out for a pre-season as well, they kind of get a little bit underrated, and they come back and can feel a little bit like a new signing. And I think maybe Dom will feel a little bit like
Gary's he's an incredible nick. He's come back like so fit. He's worked so hard in pre-season. He looks so lean and so fit. So it will feel like signing. I know it's an old cliche, feel like signing a new player, but people forget how young Dom is still. And last year was his first year in League One football. he did fantastically well in a position that he wouldn't say is naturally his position. And I think we can look forward to welcoming Dom back, and we know how much he'll contribute.
Now, we'll come on to Eain in a minute, because I think there's a long conversation to be had there about how that process works. But the final one for today so far, a little bit of a surprise. We very rarely go into a transfer window not needing a striker and signing several, but that's what's happened this summer. Justin Abiku coming in on loan. Again, kind of what's the thinking there? What do we expect from him?
Yeah, I said in an interview earlier today, we're aiming to see if we can score a goal in December this year, Gary. So, no, look, I listened to a little bit of your, what you were saying beforehand, and we just want options at the top end of the pitch, and the way we play, really aggressive, trying to press, want real energy. Michael wants to be able to make changes in game. Justin's a player that we really know, and look, Joe coming from that club to back to ourselves would have been very, very instrumental in Justin's first two loans. Our friends, down the A46, and we just like his profile. He's a really top kid. He's got a really good mentality. He's got some brilliant attributes that we value. He's a threat off the shoulder. Probably similar in profile to Rob Street, and Rob's been fantastic for us in a different position in the team. But ultimately, longer term, we see Rob as a 9, and happy to talk about the recent interest in Rob, because we just think, when I get onto Rob, what a brilliant asset he is for the football club, and what a massive role he's got to play, and what we're going to try and achieve going forward. But yeah, Justin's just a really good option for us. Quite a lot of competition with a lot of League One clubs. We think it's a really good take for us. He's probably not played loads and loads of football in pre-season with Coventry, because of just bodies in front of him in the pecking order. So maybe initially it's going to be a bit more of an impact and a bit more coming off the bench. But as we see the season go on, we think he can be a real threat and cause some real problems for League One teams. And if we want to achieve what we want to achieve, and we want to keep punching above our weight, we have to keep looking at players like Justin that maybe go under the radar a little bit, but we recognise their attributes that suit us, the potential, and we bring them to the club in a deal that's affordable to us, and it just adds to the, like I said, I think in the press release, it just adds to the weapons that Michael has at the top end of the pitch, and you can never have too many.
Excellent stuff. So going backwards a little bit, we'll actually touch on Oscar, because Oscar has come in since Eain. It's lose track of all the business it's been doing. If we lose track of it, we've been busy people. So we've taken Oscar from Colchester United. He looks like a huge prospect, but came on Saturday. So obviously somebody for the here and now as well.
Yeah, he's early in his curve. There's no doubt about that, Gary. And we've backed our judgment here in taking him. We just like his profile. Like, it's Lincoln City. We talk a little bit about our game model, and we talk a little bit about what we are as a football club. And listen, you're a massive, massive fan, so you can answer this for me. But we think our supporters want a team that's aggressive, on the front foot, physically committed, and really ask questions of the opposition. We want to get that. We want to get this place to be so hard to come. And even Saturday, down to 10 men. Talked to George Maris after the game from Mansfield, and they were delighted to get away with a point, and they played against 10 men for an hour. So we want to be that aggressive front foot team. We think we're probably a team that, if you want to use the analogy of how you break in a house, we're probably not going to pick the lock. We might be banging the door down. So we want physicality. We like physicality. We think it's really, really important in this league. And Oscar is a unique profile, 6'3", big, strong, quick, direct, powerful, wide player who's got so much potential, so much growth left to come. We think we can help him physically develop. You look at the Jovon Makama physically that left us compared to the one that made his debut. And Oscar's going to be on that journey with us. But yeah, ready to contribute. A really unique profile. We've seen enough of him at Colchester, even though he hasn't, we know all the stuff that will come with this. He hasn't scored a professional goal, and he hasn't done this, and he hasn't done that. But we also got loads of criticism for signing Rob Street, who hadn't got a brilliant goal scoring record. And 12 months later, we're batting off big bids from League One clubs for him. So we have to just back our judgment, not listen to the noise, know what attributes suit us. And we think Oscar's got all of those. Brilliant mentality, again, a brilliant character. And one, you can just tell when we recruit players now, is he a Lincoln City type? Is he a Lincoln City player? And yeah, we're really excited. He can contribute now, but he's just going to get better and better and better as time goes on. And that's why the long-term contract, there'll be bumps in the road like there was for Rob, like there will be for other young players. But yeah, we've got to keep making sure we replenish the younger element of the group and those potential future assets, because, you know, we realise upside of 2.5 million in this transfer window and upside of 3.5 million in the last 3 transfer windows, and we'll only do that if we keep replenishing the stocks and keep that development curve going. So we think Oscar's a really good acquisition for the club as well.
Wonderful. I promised we'd go on to Eain, but you've mentioned Rob Street a couple of times. It's quite topical. So let's drop onto that first before we move on to Eain. Batted away some big bids by the sounds of things, and the window's closed, and he's still a Lincoln player.
Yeah, we're ambitious, Gary, and there's times in which, you know, contractually we're obliged. We need to sell players and realise asset value. So, you know, Sean Rowan out of contract, we're protected because he's under the age of 24. So, you know, the ruling is that we still attract training compensation for Sean, and it's a significant amount of money because he was here from 15 years old. So we know that it's not do we sell him or don't we sell him. It's just like we have to realise the right amount of money for him. Ethan Erhan, we think just at this moment in time in this window, he probably run his race with Lincoln, and it was the right moment for him and the club. And I know it's frustrating for supporters when we see both those players go to another club in our league, but we have to accept the fact that they're not in our league financially. They're in a different league to us financially. So when those moments come and it's the right timing for us to sell a player, we have to extract the right value and move on. Now, with Rob, that's completely different. We've got 3 years left of his contract. We've just started to see what he's capable of. He's played 6 league games for us. He started 6 league games. We saw what he did at Doncaster in the second half of last season. He came to us severely undercooked because he'd had a shoulder injury followed by a really serious knee injury. So he hadn't played football since November when he joined us. Of course, then there's a big, you know, amount of interest because he's a centre forward and we paid a transfer fee. But in all honesty, it was a nominal transfer fee, nothing like what was reported by, you know, the West Country, if you like, the beat around there. And we gave him a 4-year contract because we saw his attributes, his potential. But most of all, again, it's a common trait for Lincoln City players, like his mentality. It's outstanding. So he goes and does what he does at Doncaster, and we want to get the benefit of that. We see long-term Rob, our number 9. We see him helping us to achieve all of our aims this year, which is being really competitive and trying to see if we can beat the odds and force our way into the reckoning for those top 6 positions. And we definitely don't have to sell, and 100% we don't have to sell to a competitor. And that's what it was. It was a bid from a club that we see as a competitor, not as a club that we have to sell to in this league, and not at a time that we wanted to sell to. And we just see so much more to come from Rob. So yeah, we've spoke to him this afternoon. Michael, Liam and myself have met with him and explained the rationale. And he's just an outstanding young man. Forget what he's like at football. And he wants to be here and he wants to be a part of what we're trying to achieve. And we're convinced that he can be a player that contributes massively to what we're all trying to do collectively. And then at the right moment, we want to sell him to a big club in the next league up, not a club that we're competing with in this league.
Wonderful, thank you.
But it's also, Gareth, it's great credit to our board. It's massive credit to the guys who, let's be honest, like they fund our club every year. Like we lose money every year, and it would be easy for them to say, look, you know, we buy him for X and we could sell him for at least 10 times X plus loads of add-ons within 15 months. And they won't, because they see the long-term rationale and the long-term value, and they want to be competitive. And, you know, it's a position where Rob's nailed down at the moment that we've already sold one player in that position for, like, you know, above £1 million. I think it shows a real ambition for the football club and a real belief in what we think of Rob, but real backing and again, a massive thank you to the board, because yeah, it's one thing us recommending it, and it's another thing in a world where they're constantly having to fund losses, that they want to turn down that type of offer as well.
It's brilliant. You've created my segue there. Because when we talk about ambition for the football club, I know officially we won't say club record signing, but the signing of Eain has been one of the headline moves of the summer. Really eye-catching. I'm interested in the deal from back to front, of how you kind of enter into negotiations with a player who doesn't speak the language. I know it seems really obvious getting an interpreter, but yeah, I'm just really interested to know how all of that works.
Yeah, and just to touch on that, I think what we have to make sure we do when we really create asset value in our players like Jovon is, and again, I just can't emphasise how lucky this football club is to have the ownership we have. The stewardship of Clive as chairman, just outstanding in every respect. And it means the club can make really measured decisions, really logical decisions with proper process and due diligence. But it also, the backing they give us to reinvest money. It would be easy to just make sure that all went on the bottom line and cut losses for a year. But reinvesting is so important if we're going to take the club, from this level of player and keep incrementally improving the squad year on year. It's a long process, but it's a process that we want to keep being competitive in this league. The waterline keeps going up. We keep kicking harder and harder to keep above that waterline. But when you do develop a player like Jovon and sell him for 7 figures plus, it just gives you that opportunity to pay transfer fees that maybe the club haven't been able to do previously. So first, thanks to them. In answer to your question, it's a long process. Lots of people take credit for that. A couple of guys, Matt and Toby, who do some work with us, looking at players within the ESC parameters, probably flagged Eain maybe 6 or 8 months ago. But we knew the transfer fee and we knew that would be outside of our parameters. When Jovon's sale went through and we knew the board would back us to reinvest that money, and we knew we'd also lost Eain, suddenly he became in that little benchmark of like, okay, this is a player that's really, really interesting, we really, really like, and now perhaps we could get close to this transfer fee. And then Joe Hutchinson, who's come back as our head of recruitment, has done loads and loads of work, getting it to a point where we're in a discussion with his agents, 2 Polish guys, both ex-football players. And to be honest, Gary, they've been massive in the part of this, because when you get on the very, very first call with them and the very first Zoom call that I had with them, you could see they're serious, they meant business, and they could probably broker a deal for us. And without them, I know agents get a really bad name, but without them, we wouldn't have been able to do this. So their intent, their desire helped. And then ultimately, we were getting into a very difficult, protracted exchange of emails and getting nowhere with his club, with Slovan Liberec. So it was me getting out to the Czech Republic and trying to get face-to-face with people, trying to build relationships. It's no different in any walk of life, I think. You do deals if you build relationships. So try to build a relationship with the sport director there. He seemed the guy that didn't have power, but he had influence. He was a good guy. He wanted to help us and help Eain, more importantly. And after, probably a couple of days of pretty tough negotiating, we were able to come up with a deal. And then is when the real challenges start, because how do we get a work permit? How do we get a visa entry? And I should probably say, as part of that, we've had to convince the player. I met him on that first afternoon. I had permission from Slovan to go and meet Eain, and Joe had translated a 74-slide presentation on Lincoln City into Ukrainian. So the player was astounded by that, and that created a good impression. And I was really pleasantly surprised, because he did have a good understanding of English. He could listen. He could understand quite a lot. He had a decent enough vocabulary. But what you could see straight away, and you'll see it when he plays football, he's like a can of pop. He's just a really exuberant character, really infectious, big smile, good laugh, like really engaged in the process. And you could tell very, very, very early in that process, the idea of coming to England was big for him. So we could sell that idea to him. He was convinced. And then it was just a case of, I said, persuading the club, getting to a number that we would be happy to go to, because it's not any number. And I know this stuff, of course, their club put out some stuff that includes, him winning the Ballon d'Or and us getting promoted to the Premier League is the real value of the deal, stuff like that. Of course, that won't happen. They can represent that deal however they want. But from us, we were happy with the deal. We were happy with the level that we went to. But again, it took massive backing of our ownership and board to agree to us doing it. And like you say, the fun and games then start where we're not in the EU anymore. So then we can't allow someone from Ukraine, because they're outside the EU, to enter the country without a visa. How do we do a medical? Because we only had 3 days to complete the deal. We did a medical by calling in some favours in Dublin. Dublin also is in the EU, Republic of Ireland. So he was able to travel there without a visitor visa. So we flew him and his agent to Dublin. We then, thankfully, with the help of UCD, they provided us with their facilities to do the medical. Kieran flew over with me to do that medical. We spoke to the FAI through the contacts we have with Sean Rowan, play for their under-21s. They did the heart screening for us. And then we had a very, very, and you'll take another show, Gary, but we had a really difficult, tense, stressful appointment then with the visa office that ended up with us going back after the visa office closed, but we had to get some more documents uploaded, and a little Irish fella who will always be thankful to and grateful for, had remembered us from earlier, loved football, and basically single-handedly made their immigration office, visa office, whatever you call it, stay open for an hour after hours, uploading all this information that we had, that if we didn't do that, it wouldn't, we wouldn't have cleared the application. So we managed to get that visa on the Monday, get them over to the UK, and then Matt Murgett, our head of football admin, did a brilliant job in running a parallel process with all of the work visas and the international clearance and all the uploading onto TMS. The amount of paperwork is crazy. And somehow from where we were on the Monday, we managed to get him registered and available to play for the Saturday. So it was a brilliant bit of work from a huge number of people, from Liam Scully down all the way through the football department. And we had to be agile and think outside the box a little bit to get everything done.
Wow, absolutely fascinating. Just got to say, in the comments, there's so many positive comments coming through, and I would imagine at a time where football club staff often take quite a lot of stick, hopefully you'll have a chance to read some of those before the end of the day. The one thing I'll also just say about Eain as well, and obviously we're talking about the process and all of that sort of thing, but raw numbers look really impressive, and Lincoln City fans may have to wait a while for him to settle in. But in terms of numbers, I mean, he looks like quite the athlete.
Yeah, that's what we think. We think outstanding out of possession, real calm, good technical ability in possession. I thought he got better and better as the game went on at Burton, and that was off the back of 2.5 training sessions and less than a week in the country, and still finding his feet. And he said to me after the game, he reckons he's about 60% fit. So some of the numbers he chucked out after that game in terms of high speed running, sprint distance and stuff were off the scale, to be perfectly honest. So yeah, we didn't sign him for the next 4 weeks or the next 4 months. We've got him on a long-term deal, and we can enjoy, I think, again, with like 2 top players. Let's not forget we committed Tom Bayliss to a new contract, or Tom Bayliss committed to a new contract earlier in the window. That was really important to us. I've said already what I think of Conor McGrandles on the show already. I think he is one of the most underrated players in, I call it, world football. Maybe that's a slight exaggeration, but he's tops for us, and he's just a typical Lincoln City player, understated, but we see the value in him. Dom Jeffries to come, obviously Finn joining, some brilliant competition in there. But yeah, not forgetting Tom, because Tom Bayliss is a really talented player, and we're so pleased because we've managed to secure him for the next 3 years, as we did Adam Jackson with a contract extension as well. So I know the headlines in the window always become the exciting new signings, but the bit of business with Tom and Adam was really important for us as well.
Wonderful stuff. At this point, if I may, I'm going to bring Charlie in, who I think has got a couple of questions. I'm conscious I don't want to keep you all night. As you know, I would happily talk to you all night about Lincoln, and I'm sure you would happily do the same.
We'll do a reflection another night, Gary, because it's mad. But like the last 2 weeks has been crazy, and there's probably a little bit of it when you look back on the pressure of the last couple of weeks in terms of knowing what we had to do and how frantic it's been. Yeah, a bit of processing tonight and a couple of days of lying in a dark room, I think. But I'll definitely come back later and another night, and we can talk about some of this in more detail if you want.
Yeah, absolutely brilliant. We'll definitely do that. We will let you go in just a second. I don't, Charlie, have a question for Jez, I believe.
Yeah, there's just 2 players that I just wanted to pick up on, and I'm going to very much copy Gaz in terms of the starting from today and moving backwards. First of all, Zayn has obviously gone over to Northern Ireland. Talk us through the process of that one.
Yeah, we were really clear that we wanted Zayn around the team in pre-season, and we knew that there was probably going to be late arrivals, just how the window was going to work. So we knew he'd get some opportunities in that first month, but we've had good dialogue with him and his agent that ultimately we've got to give him playing opportunities, and we'd love there to be a world where he perhaps had a really top National League loan, and then he can come back and play in those EFL trophies. But the best interest and the most significant interest that we got was from Coleraine, and I know Rory Higgins really well from his time as manager of Derry City. I trust him. I know that he sees what we see in Zayn, and we just think it's a really good opportunity for him now. We fast-tracked Zayn into the first team environment as a scholar, so we spent a lot of time now in and around the EPC. He's comfortable there now in a good way. He's had some opportunities, been dripped into the team, and he started the game obviously at Burton. But we can't be selfish here and keep him for the next 4 months for 3 games if we don't think he's going to get lots and lots of football. So this just gives him a brilliant opportunity, really competitive league, full-time club, manager we trust, opportunity to play, create a little bit of a CV for himself. We've got the option, if we want to bring him back in January, we can do that. And yeah, it'll be good for him to leave home again. It'll be good for him to leave Lincoln. It'll be good for him to go and spread his wings and see if he can embarrass MJ when they play away at Glentoran, or I think they play them in a couple of weeks at home. So brilliant that we've got clubs coming to us for our young players. I think that speaks volumes for what the academy have done and for the quality of those individuals as well. And we've seen them in the past, you know, that loan to Drogheda. I know it's a different league, but it probably made, like, it was a massive part of making where Freddie is today. It's like huge in his development. And yeah, we're really keen to get our best young players out playing football in the right level. And I think this was the right option for Zayn.
Yeah, absolutely. Let's really hope he can truly relish that challenge. Now, the final question, and then I think the final player that we're going to touch on is probably the big headline of the window overall, and definitely the big headline sale. Jovon McCarmer, what a move he's got, and what a good bit of money we seem to have got for him as well.
I think it's, if I can say this in the right way, so I don't want to sound provocative at all, but I think it's really good as well for the education of all of us as a fan base, as a football club, to see what development actually looks like in reality. And, you know, sometimes we bring players in, like maybe like Oscar, early in their development curve, but they've still got the first 20 odd games, their appearances in the EFL. When a player comes through our academy, you actually see their very, very first steps in football. You see what that looks like, and it'll be impossible to believe that it looks perfect from day one. So those bumps in the road, those difficult moments, well, you know, I remember him missing from 3 yards out against Stevenage, I think, at the beginning of January, when everybody was frustrated because we couldn't score a goal. And the crowd sometimes reacted in a way that they were frustrated with him, and no one understood that this guy that was 6'5", why couldn't he win this header every time? And he didn't look like he was running hard because of his running gait, maybe. But then when you look at the data and the stats, his running was outstanding. So it's just a big education, I think, for the patience, the perseverance, the belief, the trust you have to show in young players. And if you do, and we back Jovon's talent, we knew when we signed him from Derby County when he's 15 years old, and we knew what we potentially had on our hands. He's got Premier League genes. He's you know, there's not many players with his type of physical attributes, technical detail as well. We've had to help him develop an elite mentality. That's helped by the environment Michael and the coaches created, the EPC. It's been helped in his early time here by the environment Tom Shaw created, and Jordan McCann and others in the past with the academy. And there's been moments we've been tested because Jovon makes mistakes off the pitch as well as he makes them on the pitch. He did. But that's when young players need your faith in them and your trust in them. It's not when it's going well that they need that. They need it when it's going badly. And that's the reward the club gets in the end financially, is for sticking with Jovon all the way through those moments and showing massive belief in him. And hopefully then the support base sees the value of that, the value of unconditional support for those young players. And that's the way the club's going to develop in the future. So brilliant for Jovon, brilliant story, but I think really good for all of us as a football club, just to see how difficult that journey is and how much faith you have to show along the way. But if you can hold your nerve and show that real belief and faith in people, and it's not, what's the word? It's with judgment, you know. It's not, you know, it's not there for, you know, we're not just doing it blindly. There's faith and belief because of judgment. But yeah, then everybody gets their reward at the end. And can I touch on one other young player? And probably we've got 2 brilliant young players in the same position, 3 if you include Jamie Pardington, who's like an outstanding character as well. But like George Wickens, the reaction to George Wickens' performance away at Bolton this year compared to away at Bolton last year, probably quite different. Same goalkeeper, same young man with loads and loads of potential, loads of ability. We brought him to replace someone that was almost irreplaceable in everybody's eyes at the end of his loan spell. But when he arrived at the club, Lucas, it felt like Carl Rushworth was irreplaceable. So we just have to give really talented young players time. And that's why there's 4-year contracts, because there will be bumps in the road. But if we want to really realise their value to us on the pitch and beyond by how we can sell them at the end or the right part of the journey, we have to show massive belief on the way in. So, yeah, maybe George, maybe Zach. Like, again, what a talented young goalkeeping department we have with those 2 fighting for the number 1 jersey. it's not just Jovon that we have to show faith in. There's others as well.
That's brilliant. Thank you so much, Jez. One question that somebody's asked on is, will you be back on the Imps Plus comms anytime soon? I think it went down quite well.
I appreciate that. I wasn't in the best place, or I went pretty quiet in the 97th minute. I didn't know. Yeah, that was tough. But no, I enjoyed it. I don't think you can do that with a guy like John Helm and not enjoy it. He is like the absolute consummate professional. What an unbelievable guy. I don't know if I'll be as nimble as that or as dexterous as that at his age, but yeah, he's just a top professional. So that was a pleasure, as it is with you guys. So thanks for the show again. Thanks for what you do. Sorry that we've got one in post the end of your show. That's the problem of finishing at 7:00. But yeah, thanks for everything you do, and hopefully a couple of weeks' time, when everything settles, we can pick the bones and some of the detail again.
Yeah, lovely. Well, thank you so much, Jez. It's been a pleasure to speak to you, and you can now go and get a night's sleep, the first in months, no doubt.
Top man. Thank you.
Thanks a lot. Cheers.